Good evening. Welcome to Reality Check. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. It's raining sops and promises in the run-up to the general elections. Days after the government announced 10% quotas in jobs and education for economically weaker sections. Today, Congress Chief Rahul Gandhi promising a minimum income guarantee if the Congress comes to power. He said, "We cannot build a new India while millions of our brothers and sisters suffer the scourge of poverty." If voted to power in 2019, the Congress is committed to a minimum income guarantee for every poor person to help eradicate poverty and hunger. That's our vision and our promise. Now, has this promise from the Congress president actually stolen the Modi government's thunder, especially ahead of the budget, which was also expected to have some big bang announcements? But perhaps even more importantly, can India afford such a minimum wage guarantee, and can the Congress actually deliver on such a promise? But let's listen to what Rahul Gandhi had to say.
अब हम एक ऐसा कदम उठाने जा रहे हैं जो दुनिया की किसी भी सरकार ने नहीं उठाया हुआ, और यह काम सिर्फ कांग्रेस पार्टी कर सकती है। हमने निर्णय ले लिया है कि हिंदुस्तान के हर गरीब व्यक्ति को 2019 के बाद कांग्रेस पार्टी वाली सरकार गारंटी करके न्यूनतम आमदनी देने जा रही है। इसका मतलब मिनिमम इनकम गारंटी, मतलब हिंदुस्तान के हर गरीब व्यक्ति के बैंक अकाउंट में कम से कम न्यूनतम आमदनी हिंदुस्तान की सरकार देने जा रही है। मतलब हिंदुस्तान में ना कोई भूखा रहेगा, ना कोई गरीब रहेगा।
All right, let's take this straight across to our panel tonight. Professor Arun Kumar, economist, is with us. Joining us from the Congress tonight, Priyanka Chaturvedi, author and analyst Shantanu Gupta is with us, and senior economic journalist Pooja Mehra also with us. Arun Kumar, let me begin with you. After loan waivers to farmers, this is the biggest poll promise yet from the Congress. This is something that's been talked about perhaps for a long time, but there's never been an announcement like this before. Are we looking at a game changer here, or really just a tall promise?
You know, this is a political move first, because it was expected that something like universal basic income may be announced. The previous chief economic advisor had suggested that we could have something like this, and globally there is talk of universal basic income, and in fact there was a referendum in Switzerland on universal basic income about a year back, which was narrowly defeated. It is being implemented in Finland, you know, as an experiment. So in a sense, there's a talk about it because globally inequalities have increased and demand has come down. So in a sense, this is something that is being talked about globally. Now, in the Indian context, therefore, the Congress party, by coming out first, is trying to steal the thunder, which it thought that would be there in the interim budget. Or in fact, today itself there were rumors that there would be a big package for farmers, and it was expected that something would be announced. So in a sense, there's a political move along with an economic move. However, if you look at it from the economic standpoint, this scheme would be about 20% of the universal basic income scheme if we assume the same amount of transfer under universal basic income or under the minimum guarantee scheme. Because, you know, the universal basic income would go to everybody, including the rich. So the richest person in India, Mr. Ambani, would also get the money, and the poorest people would also get the same amount of money. But here, what is being announced is a minimum income guarantee. So here it would be that, you know, you probably bring people up to the poverty line. So those who are below the poverty line, roughly 20% of the population, you may give them 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, depending on what it is, and give it. But if you did universal basic income, you'd give it to everybody, and therefore it would be 5 times more expensive. So in that sense, you know, this is a more sensible scheme than the universal basic income scheme as far as India is concerned. Now the question will arise, how do you identify the poor? And that's the really big problem. In the universal basic income,
Professor Arun Kumar, let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, we'll take up each of those points, and they're very significant points that you bring up. But I do want to sort of bring in our other panelists on the points you've already raised. And Shantanu Gupta, to you first, politically particularly, given that this is election season, given that we're already hearing these announcements, clearly there was something that was also expected from the government in the budget. As Arun Kumar has already pointed out, has the Congress chief, by making this promise first, stolen the government's thunder?
So I think as Professor Arun Kumar told, in 2016-17 economic survey, there's a detail about UBI, Universal Basic Income, in Indian context, and he said in Finland is already implemented and Switzerland passed a referendum on it. So first of all, it's not a game-changing idea as Rahul Gandhi was speaking in his speech. That's point number one. Point number two, how it will be implemented, that can be seen, and who is poor, who is not, that's fine. But if you implement UBI in its entirety, that needs something of the order of 5% of GDP. That's a huge amount. So that's the problem with these bold promises, that you can just make it and you need not provide the finances behind it, that how the exchequer will bear the burden. And normally UBI as a concept is that you remove all the affirmative actions and convert it into a UBI. That's, let's say you remove all the schemes. So currently central government runs some almost 900 to 1000 schemes.
Right,
you remove all of them and convert them into UBI. That's the concept. So we have not heard the modalities.
It's interesting you
because
raise that.
Now the ruling government may declare some
Yes.
farm loan waivers. So I think this is in anticipation of that.
Okay, it's interesting, and those are interesting points that you raise, particularly, the universal basic income versus sort of existing schemes and subsidies. And as you point out, there are some 960 schemes that currently exist, which at present also cost about 5% of the centre's GDP. But before we get on to all of that, Priyanka Chaturvedi, Professor Arun Kumar points out that we're not talking, this is not actually a universal basic income we're talking about. This is actually a minimum income guarantee for the poor, and therefore this is not expected to cost as much to the exchequer as a universal basic income would do. But at this point, we have absolutely no facts from the Congress about who's going to benefit, how the poor is going to be defined under at least, as far as this minimum income guarantee is concerned. So when are we likely to get some sense of those numbers? Because without that, this seems like an incomplete promise.
No, so firstly, I'd like to be very clear. Congress doesn't make tall promises. We make commitments to the people of the country on the basis of the framework that we have created after massive consultations with regards to a manifesto. Now, name changers and supporters of name changers will not grasp the entire idea of game-changing scheme. He continues to mention universal basic income, while Professor Arun Kumar has categorically defined what we have committed to the people of the country. When Manrega was introduced, it was slammed by the opposition party, and we saw how it became a success story and a game changer. We brought right to education, right to food, and we brought many schemes which empowered the marginalized sections of the society. This happens to be one of them. Our manifesto will have a detailed explanation as to how we will go about implementing it. Universal basic income was income for all, while we are looking at targeted spending towards sections who need the maximum support of government intervention, government policies. This is what the difference is. And when we talk about farmer loan waiver coming in the budget, I think it's too little too late, because it is a government which spoke a lot in 2014 about farmer incomes, doubling their wages, etc. Nothing really has come through. They've realized that they have lost the entire battle as far as the farmers are concerned. They've lost 3 state governments. And in hindsight, trying to make a change is definitely not going to work for them. The Congress party in its UPA 1 tenure had implemented a loan waiver scheme for the farmers. So our commitment are not tall promises. Our commitment sticks, and we will implement it with a framework which will be acceptable to all and which will ensure that the marginalized feel empowered and looked after through government welfare spending.
Pooja Mehra, are you satisfied, with what we are hearing from the Congress party this evening, with this response, that all of this is going to be sort of worked out in greater detail in the manifesto? How are beneficiaries going to be identified? How is this process going to be worked out? Because we're talking about sort of immense logistics, of course, but also sort of, problems in implementation.
So I'll wait to look at the details when they come out in the manifesto and the final proposal. In the interim, I can say that I think this is a doable thing, and I think it's something for which the time has come. As far as identifying potential beneficiaries goes, the socio-economic census findings are available, and the census will be done again. So I don't see identification of beneficiaries as such a big problem. I think in his announcement, Mr. Gandhi has already said that these will be direct transfers, cash transfers to bank accounts. So I don't think implementation and logistics is such a big problem. As far as finding the fiscal space is concerned, I think the Modi government has demonstrated very nicely how some subsidies can be rationalized.
Right.
For instance, where the cooking gas subsidy has been removed for a lot of people in urban areas who don't need it, I don't see any resistance to that move. And similarly, the diesel and the petrol price prices being decontrolled, that has found acceptance amongst people. And similarly, there are a lot of distortionary subsidies. For instance, the urea subsidy that should be, in any case, even if you don't have a basic income or a targeted income scheme which calls for rationalization, I think there are a number of such schemes and subsidies that in any case have to be rationalized.
Okay.
And if that is done, a fiscal space can be created for something like this, and I would support a targeted income support scheme.
All right. So, Professor Arun Kumar, to come back to you on this, the Economic Survey of India 2016-17 calculated a minimum income per person of about 7,620 per year. That, they said, would amount to around 5% of India's GDP. As Shantanu has also pointed out, there are about 960 schemes at present which cost the exchequer about the same amount of money. So, would this be one way then to simplify things?
My take would be that you cannot reduce the subsidies for the poor because they are poor in spite of the subsidies.
Right.
So therefore, all you can do is cut the subsidies for the middle classes or cut the subsidies which the industry is getting. And we know that the tax expenditures, which are the basic, concessions to the better off sections, those amount to about 5.5 lakh crores or so. According to the last budget. So some of that can be cut. Second is the black economy is very large. You can tackle the black economy through political will, and that would yield enough resources. Fourth is we have cesses, like for instance for education, we can have a cess for removal of poverty, which could again get you funds. Then there's talk of wealth taxation, estate duty and gift taxation. These can collect a lot of money. So I think it's fiscally possible provided the political will exists and the government is willing to do the right thing by the people, because as was said by the earlier panelists, the time for it has come. Why should people live in excruciating conditions, very uncivilized conditions where they don't have the basics of life? And what we need to do is increase expenditures in the rural areas. And I would like to point out that the poor have been hit hard by demonetization and by the GST. So both these things have aggravated the situation in the last 2 years, and that's why you see a lot of farm distress, you see a lot of unemployment that's growing, etc. So in other words, the time has come where these people need support, and therefore they should get the support.
Shantanu Gupta, is that something that you would agree with, that, the situation as it is right now, this is probably more of a necessity than something, than an ideal that one could look at? Actually, if anything, the basic framework seems to have already been laid. I mean, the groundwork seems to have been laid for this by this government, whether you talk about the Jan Dhan accounts being seeded, whether it's sort of, Aadhaar verification being put in place, everything that is needed in order to look at a universal basic income or for that matter a minimum income guarantee already seems to be in place.
I think you're right. The time has come in the play in a way that now there's a basic jam framework, as you rightly said, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile phone network, and large number of direct benefit transfers are happening in last 4.5 years. The idea of DBT floated in UPA 1 and UPA 2, but implemented like in a very minuscule level. Now it's massive. So the framework is ready. So I think when we heard Rajiv Gandhi saying that when 1 rupee goes from center and only 15 paisa trickles down, so now we have a framework so that this subsidy can go directly to the bank accounts. Over all the countries, there are 3 or 4 kinds of affirmative actions that happen normally. One is direct kind help, like you give ration to people at a subsidized cost. Second is conditional cash transfer, like Manrega, where you ask someone to do their bit and then you transfer money. And this is unconditional cash transfer, where you give a targeted population, all the universal population, some amount. So that way, I'm saying this is the idea which is being talked about. This can be game changer idea, But Rahul Gandhi speaking and discovering this idea for India, that's not a game-changing thing. That's one my
okay,
point.
fair enough. Priyanka Chaturvedi, respond to that. Shantanu Gupta seems to be making the point that, all of these things have been put in place. The framework that you need to talk about any kind of minimum income guarantee or UBI, whatever we choose to call it, this government is the one that has been working towards bringing something like this, making it possible. And then you have Rahul Gandhi coasting in just a few months before the election and actually sort of making it an announcement, making it a poll promise. This government could feel a bit miffed about that.
With all due respect to Shantanu ji believes in an ideology which has created a perception that nothing happened in this country before 2014. Everything has been achieved from 2014 upwards till now. And one second, please, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. Allow me the dignity. Allow me the dignity to complete what I'm saying. It might hurt you to hear the truth, but that is the truth, and that cannot be taken away. And 2019, please understand, we identified a problem. When you all keep talking about Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji spoke, it was the Congress party which identified a problem. It was the Congress party which tried to bridge the gap that was in terms of what was being spent and what was being received. And we created that framework. For any government that comes, even if it's a non-Congress government, it becomes their due responsibility to take this framework forward. If you all have taken this forward, you all are not doing something which was spectacular. It was a work in progress initiated by the UPA. Having said that, if it was so called in your mind and this was something that you all had in mind, what stopped you from announcing something as basic as this? Now that Shri Rahul Gandhi has gone and announced it, he has come up with this targeted spending, which is not going to cause a huge fiscal deficit and can be easily manageable and implementable once it's targeted and we know who the beneficiaries are. Then I do not, I find it extremely strange that Shantanu ji finds it difficult to complement the idea and complement the words that have come from the opposition leader's speech rather than coming from the Prime Minister who could have done this.
Shantanu, if you'd like to respond to that quickly before I take this back to Professor Arun Kumar.
Yeah, so I'm saying, on idea, I have full merit on the idea. The idea of universal basic income or targeted basic income, when you and also one question to Congress spokesman, are you going to reduce some set of subsidies or some scheme, will it be in lieu of that, or it'll be over that? That's, I think that will come on details. So on idea, it's not a new idea. It's being talked about. Professor Arun Kumar told,
as she points out, as Priyanka Chaturvedi points out, why has it stayed in the realm of ideas?
It's not a new idea.
This has been discussed for so long. Why has there not been an announcement in the past? Why let the Congress, pip you to the post?
The Planning Commission in 1970s.
All right. Professor Arun Kumar, if you'd like to come in on that, there's been no end of discussion about this, including in in great detail in the Economic Survey of India 2016-17. Why has there then been no further sort of discussion on this, no further announcements from the government? Why really was there this vacuum that the Congress could in fact step into?
Yeah, so there has been a basic fiscal fundamentalism that we should not allow the fiscal deficit to rise, and that's why people were afraid that as expenditures of 1 or 2 or 3% of GDP would raise the fiscal deficit above the FRBM 3% that they are targeting. So in a sense, there was caution about not starting UBIC or not going in for guaranteed minimum incomes. Now I think what has happened is because the elections are close, so everybody is going for it. But I think it's perfectly doable because the fiscal targets can also be met if we think of the wealth taxation, estate duty, gift taxation, cess on corporation tax and income tax and things like that. Because the world over, the climate has changed, where people are realizing that inequalities globally have become so great that they are coming in the way of creating demand. So from the macro perspective also, we need to generate demand at the levels. So if we spend, say, about 2 lakh crores at the lower levels, that will generate demand for industry. The economy will do better in the Indian context. So from a macro perspective also now, I think it's clear that the world needs something like this, given the rise in disparities. And the fiscal conservatism probably will go because the World Bank fixed a target of 3% of GDP for fiscal deficit, but there's really no reason why it should be 3% and not 4%. And we anyway are exceeding the 3% target because the 3% doesn't include the state governments, and their deficit is anyway 3%, and the public sector is borrowing a lot. So our fiscal deficit is much above 3%. It's
Okay,
not
fair
just
enough.
3%.
Fair
So I
enough.
think the talk of 3% has to be, yeah.
Okay, so Pooja Mehra, is that something that you would agree with, that now is no longer the time for fiscal prudence anymore, and that there have to be creative solutions as to where this money is going to come from to finance?
I strongly disagree with the statement that this is not the time for fiscal prudence. Let's not forget, whenever there is fiscal indiscipline, it is the poor who suffer the most, because it results in inflation, and inflation is a tax on the poor. So but I also think that funding a targeted basic income scheme is fully compliant with keeping the fiscal deficit under check. I do think fiscal space can be found without breaching the targets, and I think that is what should be done. And there are so many irrational subsidies that have accumulated over the years that we can simply rationalize or do away with. There are so many schemes, that in any case, and in the last few years, they have been restructured, and we can continue to restructure them, and that will reduce wastage and leakage, and that will give us the space to fund this targeted basic income that has been announced. And you were asking previously why it was not done, even though some groundwork has already been in place. Yes, a pilot was done between 2010 and 2013 in Delhi and Madhya Pradesh.
Yes.
And the Economic Survey in 2016-17 had proposed this. I think why it could not be done until now is because first there was the demonetization that had been announced. You cannot give two shocks of such a big nature to the economy simultaneously, and the very next year there was GST that was rolled out, and therefore it was logical that it would be done this year or the year after. I think you cannot give too many shocks altogether to the economy, and therefore sequencing is important.
I think Professor Arun Kumar has a point to make. Go ahead.
Ankita, I didn't say that fiscal prudence has to be given up. All I said was that the 3% target is arbitrary.
Right.
Therefore, you can change the 3% target, consistent with it. Plus, as I said, you can raise resources from a wide variety of things. So, in a sense, I didn't say there should be no fiscal prudence.
No, absolutely not.
But I think the problem with the demonetization, the problem with demonetization was that it damaged the unorganized sector, it damaged the agriculture sector, and GST is further added to that, and that's why the problem has got more acute, and that's why the time has come where we should do it.
But in terms of implementation, Professor Kumar, states will have to come on board. This is not something clearly that the centre can do on its own. And there are problems in implementation there as well, because, data shows that the very districts of the country that house perhaps the most poor are also the ones that seem to face the greatest shortfall when it comes to allocation of funds. So we're actually looking at sort of huge problems when it comes to implementation.
I agree that implementation will be a problem, and given the weak governance that we have in the country, this will definitely create some problems. But I think given the political will, I think this problem can also be surmounted. As was already pointed out, we have the socio-economic survey where simple criteria can be there. Some 1 or 2 or 3, 4 simple criteria can be used to identify who are the poor who should receive this kind of income. So I think if the political will exists, it can be done.
All right, if the political will exists, it can be done. It seems there is, rather a wealth of political will at the moment, and that seems to be cutting across party lines ahead of elections. Whether this is just going to remain a promise, whether this will in fact be the game changer that parties need, well, I think we'll have to wait and see. For now, at least, one thing seems to be clear. The Congress wasn't exaggerating when it said that it's not about to play on the back foot. We are hearing, one big announcement pretty much every day from the party. It'll be interesting to see how the government, in fact, responds to all of this. We're going to keep talking about this for the moment. Thanks so much, all of you, for joining us on Reality Check tonight.